topic that is arguably less awkward as well, monopolistic competition. So last week we were talking about monopolies, and now we're moving into monopolistic competition, but it's kind of difficult from the simple interpretation of the words to tell the difference.
Yeah.
So I guess the easiest way to do it would be looking at the preconception and then breaking it into the actualities. So the word monopolistic makes us think of one seller, a non-competitive concept, but then the word competition brings us into the opposite mind, a bit of a contradiction. So monopolistic actually refers to monopoly power, the ability to set price essentially. This means then that monopolistic competition refers to a competitive market where the firms are still price makers or setters. But then I think there's some really cool illustrative examples out there to better explain this.
Yeah. So I was just looking up today, actually going away on holiday soon, and I was wondering why it costs substantially more to take the train between cities in Ireland than take the bus. Like at the time before we were shooting this video, I was looking up for a train ticket for between Dublin and Belfast, and it was €21 for an adult ticket between Dublin to Belfast on Irish Rail. However, to get a bus at the same time, it only cost €10. And I was wondering, why is this? Well, although some people prefer to take the train, for me, especially as a student, I simply can't afford to pay twice the price. And I was wondering, so then I just did a bit of research. I was wondering, is it more expensive to run a train than a bus? And there was no information on Google on anything between running a train in Ireland. So then I looked into Britain, a country with similar size, similar rail system to Ireland, and essentially the cost of running a long distance train, such as London to Edinburgh, is only 8.9 pence per passenger per kilometre, which equals about 12.9 pence per mile. While in Britain it is estimated that it costs about 2.32 pounds per mile was the only statistic I could get. So using a calculator, I calculated it's roughly 7.7 pence per mile. And while it is a lot more expensive to run a train than a bus, it still doesn't merit the ticket costing twice the price. So then I questioned, is it really that much quicker? And no, it's not. It's 2 hours 20 minutes to get the bus, 2 hours 30 minutes to get the train. Then my last question is it luxurious? And like the others, I can't simply state that. That's a matter of opinion. So then I thought the reason as to why the price is much higher is because the Irish Rail is a monopoly, as we talked about in the last video. So go back to that video if you want to learn more about monopolies. Watch all the videos, please.
Would recommend.
So then, whereas within the bus system, it's a monopolistic competition, which is what we're going to go into now and talk about the characteristics of monopolistic competitions.
And maybe get into the explanation of why there is such a price difference between a monopoly or monopolistic competition style market. So I guess it's looking to go into kind of the main characteristics of what monopolistic competition is. So as happens in economics, the list is quite useful here. First one, as a characteristic of monopolistic competition, is you have many firms in the industry. It's a realistic approach. Rather than an infinite amount of firms or just one, there's said to be many. And each firm acts independently, and an individual seller can influence the quantities sold by the price it charges for its output, i.e. it just has market power within this context.
Then there's the second one, be product differentiation exists. So unlike what we saw before, especially in monopolies, in this market structure, products are non-homogeneous and they're not of the highest standard, as in perfect competition. But that which is still wage firm are close, but not perfect substitutes for one another either. In order to compete for the revenue from the consumers, firms like brand and advertise, which we'll talk about in a lot more detail later on in the video. And the third factor, there's profits and costs, which are reasonably known. So there's knowledge as to the profits made by other firms in the industry, which exist reasonably, and in the same way consumers reasonably know the prices being charged for the various products sold by the firms in the industry.
Then there's also the no total barriers to entry. So say unlike in Monopoly, where we outlined in depth the barriers to entry, it's of relative ease to enter and exit the industry in a monopolistic competition structure. There are very few barriers and no total barriers to enter the industry and begin production. Then there's also the idea that within monopolistic competition, firms seek to maximize profit. So as has been the case, firms choose the quantity output where the marginal cost will equal marginal revenue, unlike Monopoly, which is outlined better in depth in the notes, as it better details the technical aspects of how Monopoly functions.
Now, these conditions are met by virtually all markets in the real world. conditions 1 and 2 are easily satisfied by both, which is many firms in the industry and product differentiation. Condition 3 can refer simply to whether the seller discloses the price of the product at request, which was profits and costs. Then condition 4, the no total barriers to entry, that's more a point of contention. However, as the human effort and capital investment of entering any modern industry is significant enough for many to warrant it as a deterrent or a barrier to enter into the industry. Condition 5, that's more assumed to be met due to a rather pessimistic understanding of human behaviour.
That is a translates into an economic sense, which is like fair or maximising our own utility. That's economic concept. Might fit well with the social justice sensibility, but hey, economics, baby! But then there's also some like cool illustrative examples outside of kind of bus earning stuff, and I guess we're going to do the challenge starting. Okay, and now it outlines the major characteristics of a monopolistically competitive market, but perhaps it's better to think about it in context of some markets that we all have experience in. So, for example, you have in the real world monopolistic market structures, which include but are not limited to eyewear, wallets, handbags, shoes, deli shops, insurance companies, alcoholic beverages, men's underwear, mascaras, hair gels, shoestrings, lipsticks, lip glosses, automobiles, phone cases, wireless headphones, gardening tools, office furniture, carpets, and many more. But there's also the aspects of looking at it in a more like technical standard, which are really outlined quite well by Matthew within the notes. So if you're very interested to see how it works,
go to the notes and you can read more about like short-term production, monopolistic competition, or long-term production, monopolistic competition as well.
And the idea of equilibrium, the idea of excess capacity, etc., etc. All those technical aspects are outlined very well in the notes. But if you use this video as the basis for that more technical understanding, you will be flying it. But then, are there any interesting concepts within monopolistic competition aside from outlining the major identifiers of them? No?
No, sorry. Now we're just going to look at two kind of key questions that are always asked by many economists, which is monopolistic competition bad for society, and can policymakers improve market outcome? Which is kind of the essential part of our module as a whole, as its economic policy.
Improving market outcomes.
Yeah. So, briefly put, monopolistic competition is not as beneficial to perfect competition. Total surplus is not maximised under monopolistic competition, but these inefficiencies are subtle, hard to measure, and hard to fix, so they're difficult to regulate. The three main sources of inefficiencies are: the source of inefficiency is markup of price over marginal cost. So some consumers will decide not to buy the good because of the price, even though they value the good. This leads to deadweight loss of monopoly pricing. Then the second one would be that governments find it too complicated to regulate monopolistic competition, so they don't tax them. And finally, the number of firms in competitions may not be ideal. There may be too few, too many. Finally, we're also going to look at product variety externalities and business dealing externalities. So, product variety externality, as you can see below, because consumers get some consumer surplus from the introduction of a new product, entry of a new firm conveys a positive externality on consumers, whereas business stealing externality is quite the opposite. Because other firms like lose customers and profits from the entry of a new competitor, entry to a new firm imposes a negative externality on existing firms. So these are the positive and negative effects of new businesses entering the monopolistic market. So the firm could have too many or too few products, which leads to inefficiency, obviously. So while under perfect competition, these externalities don't exist because goods are identical and the price equals marginal cost, in monopolistic competition and in the real world, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah. And then within monopolistic competition, one of the major ways that firms look to differentiate their prices through the idea of advertising and branding. So like, if you want to just kind of look at the idea of advertising in general, you can kind of look at maybe the fast food industry to begin. And like, I'm loving it, finger looking good, Dunkin' Donuts saying like, America runs on Dunkin', Five Guys, always fresh, never frozen, Papa John's, better ingredients, better pizza, Subway, eat fresh. They're all kind of reinforcing this idea of them being better, more appealing to the consumer. Then you can look at supermarkets.
Supermarkets, say Tesco, like in Ireland, Tesco is Everyday Clubs, Centra for the way we live today, SuperValue, Real Food, Real People, Spire, Under the Tree at Spire, obviously. Lidl, they don't have as much iconic ones, but there's big in quality, Lidl on price, and Aldi like brands, only cheaper.
So you can really see how they're trying to differentiate themselves through their advertising, really hammer that home to the consumer to remain competitive. But then they're not just kind of limited to a food market, they exist for perfumes, like Calvin Klein, Between Love and Madness, Life's Obsession. There's another one like Promise or Anything But Give Her Arpege. Oh my god, I feel so uncultured.
Every Woman Has Two Sides from Kat Von D, Saint and Sinner. And then even with cars, there's BMW, the ultimate driving machine, Fiat, driven by passion, Porsche, there's no substitute,
Youconomics,
or Volkswagen, Dow Soto.
But then you have to really ask yourself, kind of like, why do they have these slogans? So they're all competing for revenue from the consumers in their particular market, and provided they've already owned their product down to as good as it can be, minimized costs, duly refined prices, the firms seem limited now they can compete. Thus, a firm can try and convince consumers in the market to spend their capital on the firm's product over other firms' products through advertising. But then advertising is not just limited to slogans, there are all other kinds of types of advertising, which we can look at now.
So the first one is the generic advertising, a type of advertising that promotes the product of an entire industry rather than the product of an individual firm. So generally, all or most of the firms in the industry would share the cost of the campaign. While this isn't common in monopolistic competition whatsoever, such advertising could be used in perfect competition.
And then there's competitive advertising, where it's the firm trying to convince the consumer that the product of one firm is superior than those of all its competitors in the industry. Example, Personal and Ariel with their comparative advertising campaigns.
Then persuasive advertising is another type, where it's very like competitive advertising with subtle differences. No reference is made to the product of competitors, but you were told that you really need or desire this product specifically. Such advertising is seen in most modern branding on non-necessity goods mainly, such as Virgin Media's TV ads depicting a happy family availing of their products in various different ways.
Then there's also like information advertising, the primary characteristic being that it like seeks to educate the consumer, so it can explain the dangers of consumers and forces the existence of a certain product, kind of like infomercials. But then there's other like kind of considerations to do with advertising. Like for economists, the social value of advertising is highly contested. Many people disagree on the fundamental questions like, is society wasting resources it devotes to advertising, or does advertising in general serve a valuable purpose? So I guess the best way to kind of find the answers to that would be to look at the negative externalities of advertising.
So first we'll recap on what an externality is exactly. So the definition of externality on Wikipedia, which you can see below, is the consequence of an industrial or commercial activity which affects other people or things without this being reflected in the market price. Now that we understand the term externality, it is good practice to try and use it in the situation it can be employed in. Regarding advertising, there is a significant school of thought which believes that advertising is almost wholly bad. They argue that it's an expensive, pollutive, and manipulative effort that should be generally avoided. Such as they view advertising as a way that increases prices. In order to cover the increased cost of advertising, firms may seek to increase their revenue by raising the price of the product. Like most firms spend about 20 to 30% of their total revenue on advertising.
Yeah, which very much shows its like power, or at least its appeal to companies that monopolistic competition. Then there's also like a moral question of like, is it manipulating the consumer in a way that's like psychological and supposed to be informative? Is it like instilling within them certain ideas and values that wouldn't be naturally occurring on their own, which is obviously a huge moral quandary. But then there's also the idea of
like impulse buying comes a lot with advertising, so especially in like in supermarkets and shops, advertising leads consumers to impulse buy and waste part of their income. This is desires maybe fashioning consumers for a lifestyle which is neither sustainable nor wholesome.
yeah, big bumps in the sustainable, and especially when you look at the likes of say like pennies or any of those kind of industries, they just motivate like constant consumption, which wouldn't be like ecologically conscious or sustainable or efficient for the consumer because they're wasting money. Then there's also the idea that like advertising can really promote harmful consumption for like some cigarettes, fast foods, alcoholic beverages, which can damage the health of the consumer, eventually putting cost of that particular like advertising campaign on society through the tax system, aka because it funds public health.
And then it's also unnecessary pollution, obviously, so that's the ecological part of it. Well, like any production involving plastics, papers, carbon-based transport is explicitly harmful to the environment. Long term, the idea is that the pollution from advertising adds nothing to anything material. Like, it is simply product for the sake of manipulation, so that's it basically.
Yeah, arguably a very contentious topic, but then there's also like the arguable better side to it, which is that advertising informs consumers on the price of goods being offered for sale, the key features and qualities of the good, the existence of new products, and the location of retail outlets. It allows the buyer to kind of be better informed, to make better decisions on what to buy, and eventually allows the market to allocate resources more efficiently. Advertising also reduces the market powers and fosters more competition by informing consumers of price differences of all the firms in the market, and it allows a means of entry to the market as new firms are able to attract customers away from existing firms, and it can arguably also be like a signal of quality.
Because like basically if firms are willing to advertise, it shows that they must care about the product and they must believe that the product will be successful, because they wouldn't waste the money on advertising if people weren't if they were just going to use it once, see the advertising, buy the product but never go back to it. That's not economically viable for most firms anyway.
And that's the logic that follows in a general context. But then there's also the idea of branding. So like advertising is closely related to the concept of branding, but branding is more so the action by which a firm, through advertising, develops a persona, personality, atmosphere, and kind of like a vibe surrounding its product and its consumer and its advertising. But most importantly, branding highlights the way a firm differs from its rivals.
Like the analysis of the externalities of branding differs similarly. On one hand, critics are wary of the idea that branding manipulates consumers into perceiving product differences that do not actually exist.
Which is arguably morally dubious.
Yeah. Consumers are willing to spend their money on Apple's expensive AirPods, headphones, because Apple's advertising has created the brand of luxury to surround them. Whereas it would be safe to assume that the average consumer would be less willing to purchase a product of the same price and quality without understanding the branding of the product through its advertising. And this can come in the form of packaging, product design, logo, as well as traditional video formats.
But then it is in more recent times that economists have defended the existence of branding. The idea is that branding gives firms kind of an incentive to meet the expectations of their customers, which is huge. For example, one trip to McDonald's will tell the consumer all they need to know about the firm, and so if they enjoy their experience at McDonald's, they can return to any other location and expect products of identical quality and thus ensure consistency of the brand. Imagine if, say, every iPhone was made up of a different quality, makeup and design. How would you know what you're going to get? What way would you be able to associate the brand with quality? You wouldn't necessarily be so conscious and aware. So again, informing consumers, empowering them to make decisions, and having their expectations met. And certainty regarding what they're going to be consuming.
So that's pretty much it for this episode.
Yeah,
in the next episode, we're going to go on to oligopolies, which is the last form of imperfect competition.
Yeah, and today I think we've gone through all the major defining points of monopolistic competition, how it differs from monopoly, what are its major defining characteristics, how we're able to look at it within the context of our own particular lives, the idea of externalities affecting it, positives, negatives of advertising, positive, negatives of branding, and as a whole, we hope that it has provided you with a more firmer ground in another type of market structure, and that will allow you to empower you to go and look at it within your own life, to view it critically, to identify it, and then also see the way that it overall will impact you, which brings us once again to our sign-off slogan: Economics, it's about you.